We've talked about alignment, and I think that's one of the greatest needs in people,
Mm.
to be a part of a culture, to belong to a family. But even that,
Hmm.
it isn't just the fact of saying I'm American or I'm Japanese or I'm whatever. I think I think there is a inner sense. I think the sense of belonging is that sense of alignment. I think that those two are much closer than we think. Um, it's kind of like, for instance, going to a church. Um, we had some people some time ago left the church and got a job someplace. And they said, it was the craziest thing, because we would go into looking for a church home. And they said, we attended there 2 or 3 times and no one said a word.
Wow.
And all they would say is, it was like we didn't fit.
Hmm.
And I think there's an internal instinctive need within us to have that connection, which is an alignment. I mean, I think the very core of who we are as humans, I think that's what God has done.
Right.
God's desire was to have fellowship and relationship, which is interpreted really as alignment.
Mm.
I when I'm in, I can come into wherever you are, and if I have this connection, that's alignment.
Yeah.
I have that, and alignment. Alignment, I think, life is designed to work. It's designed not to fail. It's not designed for people that are broken, people that are mad, people that are, all of that is a sign, is a fact of something is wrong. Something's out of alignment there. And we instinctively connect with relationships. We have our cliques,
Mm.
our, and in reality, what that means is that's someone I'm in alignment with. I feel it. So alignment is more than just an agreement.
Right.
It's more than, you and I agree on the same things. We we have the same political affiliation, or we have the same background, or but there's something deeper when it comes to alignment that touches our soul, to where it's uh, like I said, it's deeper than agreement.
Hmm.
It's a connection.
Sure.
It's a
It's a draw.
bond. Yeah, it's a bond that's and when that happens, there's a peace that follows.
Mm.
I think the peace is, it's almost like, of course, we was talking about the alignment on cars. When a car gets out of alignment, you're constantly struggling, a constant fight to keep it straight, because it's always pulling you to the right, it's pulling you to the left.
So let's break that down, because I think that we could easily gloss over that, right? And just make that as a great metaphor, but not dig into it. So I want to dig into it. What happens when you're in response mode? What happens when you are forced to hold something so steady so that you can continue in your mind, your illusion that you're going straight, but you're fighting something? What happens to possibilities or future opportunities when you're so focused on just holding tight?
Well, and that's the big thing. Alignment. Um, Let me give you this illustration. Alignment, when you're talking about something being off, whether it be a degree off,
Sure.
something as simple as a degree. If I was to make a complete circle here, it would be 360 degrees.
Mhm.
If I completely turned all the way around, it would be 360 degrees. If I'm off 1 degree here,
Mhm.
you're really not going to notice that much. You're really not. I mean, because it would be like 1/360th
Right.
is like 1 degree off.
Right.
That's not a big deal here. But if you're making a moonshot, that's 240,000 miles to the moon.
And 1 degree.
And 1 degree, because you don't notice it, but 1 degree, you go 240,000 miles. And what that puts you is about 4,000 miles off by the time you go that distance. It's
Mhm.
like 4,000 miles off of your target.
Mhm.
So a lot of times I think people get that 1 degree and they suck it up. They just, it's all right.
Sure.
It's a little off right now, but I can handle it. But it doesn't affect you now. But what it does is it affects you in the long run.
Right.
By the time you get way down the road and suddenly you realize I'm off. I mean, I'm like really off. I'm not. It's not like I'm missing my target slightly. I'm 4,000 miles off of my target,
Mhm.
and I think that's where a lot of people. And the problem is, by the time they get to that point, they don't remember where they got off.
Mm.
It's been ingrained so much into their life, the bumps, because that's what gets everybody off in the first place. A car, for instance, going back to that metaphor, is because they hit a curb or they had an accident or they hit a bump. Something kicked them out of adjustment, and they've just learned to live with it.
Right.
Anger, frustration, and they don't know why. And they get so far down the line, and it sabotages their marriage. It sabotages their business. It sabotages everything. And by that time, you can't even trace back to know. I mean, that was 250,000 miles ago
Right.
when I got
So
bumped.
how do we get back?
Well,
Yeah.
that's and that's something I think God gives us a plan for that.
Mhm. Well, one of the things that I talk about I know we've both been talking, it's so fun to see how sometimes I feel like God just drops a word in the hearts of so many people, right? Like you've been talking about alignment for several weeks, probably a couple of months now. And about 6 months ago, I started that word was dropped in my spirit. And I think there's a lot of people talking about alignment right now. Like it's the word of the season. It's the word that God has for us. And I
I think
also
it is.
I also think that a lot of people are going to take that and they're going to run with it and make it something that it's not as well. So let's talk a little bit about what alignment is not. Because one of the things that, as I was having a conversation with my friend Chat, a real philosophical conversation, I said, I feel like the word for the season is alignment. But there's also a world that likes to pervert things that are seasonal and timely and urgent. And one of the things that I've seen culturally become an issue is that people have been primed to feel like they can be self sufficient. They have been primed to feel like they can do things alone. And when somebody's out of alignment, a lot of times the first thing that you're told to do is to put up boundaries and to pull away from people and to, get back into a self sufficient place. But as to your point earlier, that's not alignment. Isolation was not God's intent for
No,
alignment.
no, no. And that's the problem with every kind of hurt or wound or bump. It pushes us into isolation because usually all we're trying to do, I mean, that's like people that are cynical, is the fact that what they're trying to do is just preserve themselves from being hurt again. And so
Mhm.
in their defense, they just become cynical of everything.
Mm.
People hide whenever, but again, that is the point. That is a sign something is off.
Yeah.
That may be oversimplified, but I think that's where it comes across mostly is when people are defensive, when they're going through, they're off. You people, they're always angry. Something is off.
Mhm.
We don't want many times to discuss those things. Sometimes they're embarrassing. Sometimes we don't. Sometimes we don't even remember.
Right.
Sometimes I think that's why a lot of times they even go back to people's childhood
Yeah.
and they say, well, this happened. They were abused or they were whatever. Something happened there that bumped them off slightly, and now here they are 20 years later. They're 4,000 miles off where they should be, and they
Mhm.
don't even know why.
Mhm.
They can't keep their marriage together. They can't keep money. They can't keep a job. They can't keep. Yeah, and it's always, well, somebody kind of like when I'm playing golf, people I get amazed. They'll get out there and they'll hack away at that thing, and they'll finally say, "I've just got to get some new clubs." And I'm thinking, it ain't the clubs,
I would
baby.
say I need new shoes. These shoes
Yeah.
are slowing me down.
Well, I mean, because that becomes the excuse. It's because of that, or because, and they don't even know.
Yeah.
They don't even know. I I I think what we've got to do, and if I could just keep from, please forgive me for the metaphors are always
Great
running
point.
through my mind, but it's like golf to me. You groove a swing
Mhm.
that keeps you on track. When you get when you get off, it's like you don't know why, because you can't see what you're doing.
Mhm.
You think you're doing it right, but you've got something in your swing that's taking you into the trees, and you're thinking, what is wrong? And
Right.
again, you start saying, well, maybe it's my clubs. Well, maybe it's this, but it's you're off. If the groove of your swing is right, you're going to get the results that you want. And if we can look at the results and say that's not what I want, that, and I think that's where people mess up, is the fact that,
Do you think they know what they want?
no, I don't. I don't. That's what I'm saying. I think that sometimes it happens so long ago they don't even know what's the matter.
Right.
You look at people and say, "What's the matter with you?"
Right.
And they don't know.
Right.
They literally they're caught up. But it's alignment.
Right.
It's something in them that got wounded, got hurt, got bumped, bruised, and they're reacting out of that. And I think that God's plan is to bring us back into alignment, to make our that you bring healing and wholeness
Right.
to who we are. There's a scripture in 2 Peter chapter 1 where he said, add to your, it tells you to do this. He said, add to your faith virtue, to your virtue knowledge, to your knowledge temperance, patience, godliness, brotherly kindness, charity. And he said, if these things be in you and abound, they will make you that you're neither barren nor unfruitful in the knowledge of what God's got for you. And there will be a broad entrance for you into the provision and the kingdom of what God has. And these are things that we have to add. And what's interesting, all of those things are things we have to measure ourselves by, to say, where am I with virtue or with knowledge or temperance? Just temperance. You wouldn't think of temperance or patience being a spiritual thing. It's really not. It's just, that's life.
Right.
And so I think those things are designed to bring us back into alignment,
Right.
to where we have a path into the things that God has for us.
Well, let's talk about that, because, I feel like obviously there are times in life where you see yourself, 40,000 yards off or feet off or whatever, like you're down the road and you're miles away from where you were intended. I know that you believe, and the word tells us that God has a plan and a purpose for each of our lives. And yet there are these things that happen. But I want to ask you, what about people that they're successful, or maybe they've done the work? I think about back to the car situation, right? A car was built to work. It was built to function. Just so were we, right?
Yes. Absolutely.
But there's things that get it out of alignment, and then you recalibrate. And that's really what we're talking. Well, first you recognize it. We've got to look at those warning signs.
Isn't that the hardest thing, though?
Well, we think about this
so
many times, though. So one of the things that I will recognize is I normally carry a pretty good countenance. I feel like I'm usually pretty positive and forward thinking and all of that. But there are times where I know I'm out of alignment. Perhaps when I look down at my phone and I see somebody's name pop up and I'm like, oh God, what do they want? That's a sign that you're out of alignment, right? And so I want to say,
I hope not.
well, when you think, I'll let that slide. There's a few more people pull it on you probably than me. But when you think about, who are you naturally? And I think this is why identity work is so important. But when you think about who you are naturally, and then you see yourself responding in a way that's not natural to you, that's a good sign that something's wrong, that you're out of alignment, right?
Yeah. Well, the car's going to pull to the right or the left depending on alignment.
Well, and I think with the cars too, you're going to get back down the road. So you recognize it, you recalibrate. And I mean, another metaphor, one of the things I like to say is, in order to recalibrate, you got to open up the glove compartments and pull out the owner's manual.
Yeah. Well, but I think that's, again, going back to that scripture, 2 Peter, that kind of is, I mean,
That's the adjustment.
It's simple, really. I mean, and Theresa, that may be one of the biggest things, is the fact that it's designed to be simple. Mm-hmm. This isn't really rocket science. There are things that hurt us. It bumps us off. This is the reaction. maybe people would call it works of the flesh, which is, carnal things of bitterness and hatred, and all of those things. All of those things are signs of being out of alignment with the way you were created, the way the car was made, basically. And those are signs. I mean, signs are there, Somebody say, well, I can't believe she left me. You mean you saw nothing? Well, my kid went out and killed 19 people. You saw nothing?
Right.
Was there no signs whatsoever?
Right.
Was it nothing at all but people don't pay attention to the signs. I think it becomes such a way of life that they think, well, that's just the way they are.
Because you say yourself, right? 1 degree isn't significant. Now, if somebody comes along and 1 degree is not a big deal, but they sideswipe you, you're going to pay attention to that.
Yeah.
Right. And so you might have to make an adjustment. My car accident I was in recently, that required a straight on adjustment, but hitting a curb, I probably would have overlooked that. So how do we, from your place, how do you think we stay on top of alignment so that we don't have these totally missing the plan and the purpose for our lives?
Theresa, I'll tell you the truth. I think the measuring device is love.
Mm-hmm.
I know when I get out of love and into selfishness, I think everything, if we believe in God, the Bible says God is love, then everything is created off of that pattern. I think that is probably the number one signs that we're off track. Are you bitter towards someone? Listen, everything, even the 10 commandments, every one of those really, well, just almost all of them has to do with your behavior toward other people.
Right.
Everything that comes from God tells us this is how you're to treat people. And when you sense that you're not functioning in that, well, love doesn't, 1 Corinthians 13, love doesn't boast itself. It behave itself in a wrong way. It doesn't take from this one or that. All of those things are manifestations of that shows you where you are in relation to alignment to life. When you get out of love, things stop working because everything was created on that foundation. When I get into selfishness, things stop working. It affects my relationships. It affects everything. So I think the way we measure ourselves is to say, how am I responding? Am I responding in selfishness? Am I responding in bitterness? Am I responding with hatred, revenge? Am I, all of this stuff that is contrary to love? I think that's the markers that we have to constantly hold up to ourselves. However, we're raised in a generation, in a society where people are basically saying, you watch out for yourself.
Right.
You take care of yourself. It's everything is self. And so people get out of alignment and they don't even know that they're there.
Right.
But life stops working. You get when you, the opposite of love, the other side of love would be selfishness. When you get into selfishness, you're going to take advantage of somebody. That's being out of alignment.
And so we have a society that's built around creating selfishness, and we don't know what love actually looks like. I mean, I think even with unbreakable marriages, one of the things that we talk about is you're raised now in a generation, in a time, in a society that says it's all about you, take care of you, and then you're forced to now learn how to be 100% for somebody else's 100%, and you don't even know what that looks like. Nobody has taught you that.
I was at the gym some time back, and there was a guy that was in there. He's in from California, and he made a statement. He was talking to somebody, and he made a statement. He said, "This is my me time."
Oh,
and when he said it, it just something went something felt wrong.
Mm.
And I thought, that is probably one of the biggest signs, at least, that needs to be looked at, because that's where it comes. Marriage can, if you take more than you give, you're going to fail. In business, employers, if if they've got employees that take more than they give, then they're not going to be worth the money that they're paying them. All of that is a sign, is that when you get into selfishness, it takes you out of balance with life.
Right.
The Bible said in the book of Proverbs, it says the way of the transgressor is hard. So what's he transgressing? Well, there's only two things that he can transgress that really makes things stop working. One is wisdom, because the worlds were created through wisdom and understanding, wisdom and love.
Mm.
And when you transgress that, life gets hard.
Mm.
It stops working for you. Suddenly you're fighting the wheel, back to the car thing. Yeah, I'm constantly fighting to stay online and struggle. And life is not supposed to be hard.
Right.
I know people said life is hard. Well, if if you
want it to be hard, have your day.
if it is hard, it is hard to the person that's transgressing wisdom or love.
So let's talk about transgressing wisdom, because we live in an AI-driven society that's just going to get exponentially faster and more access to knowledge. And I believe that wisdom comes when knowledge is applied and practical and you've learned from it. But if we're not forced to learn things anymore and we just have stuff given to us all the time, how does that affect our situation with being a transgressor to wisdom?
Say that one more time, though.
Yeah. So my feelings are, wisdom comes from applied knowledge, right? We get the knowledge, we apply it to our situation, and now it becomes a lesson, and now it's wisdom, and we're walking in that. But if it's not something that we've learned on our own, that we had to struggle through to learn, and it's just easily accessible to us all the time, it's just constant flow of information, how are we building wisdom?
Well, I of course, I see wisdom not as a learned thing.
Okay.
I think wisdom applies more to understanding. I think I see wisdom as a spiritual force and not just because knowledge obviously shows me how to do it, but wisdom was more of when and where and how. That's because things spring out of that, like discretion and so wisdom I see just as things that inside. I'm responding. That's not wisdom to do that there. It not saying that doesn't apply, but that's not wisdom. That's something that comes instinctive on the inside of you. And when people resist that, I think they.
So like your conscience?
Well, your conscience is the voice of your spirit.
Sure.
Every part of you has a voice. Your body has a voice, and it's called feelings. Your soulish man has a voice. It's called reason. But your spirit has a voice called conscience. And when you violate that, you can harden that. That's why the persons can have their conscience seared with a hot iron. What that means is, it's kind of like when you go to the cleaners and they put a new crease in your pants. The old image is replaced with another image. And people can believe lies or get messed up, and their conscience will be seared to where they're doing things now that they would have never done before. They're violating their conscience. They're doing things. They're violating love. They're violating service. They're violating submission. They're all of the inner things that used to be the I don't know, the trigger, that little voice. Suddenly you're not hearing it like you should. That's why people say that used to bother me, but it doesn't bother me anymore. I can just do that now without even thinking about it. What they've done is they've kind of seared their conscience. And people, I think, can get to the place to where they are so adept in a mindset or a family or a group of selfishness.
Mhm.
Another scripture says evil communications will corrupt good manners, and being around people can affect you to the point that you'll find yourself doing things that are not wisdom and it's not love, and and it will affect that voice, your conscience on the inside of you, to the point it'll take you off track, offline. I mean, stop and think about it. uh, how many times has people gotten out of alignment because of their relationships? They were such a good kid until they got with so and so,
Right.
and it affected them like that, and it takes them out of alignment.
Mhm.
And so they're violating their conscience, they're violating wisdom, they're violating love, and it gets to where their life just literally takes off on another trail that
Right.
many times they can't recover from. And so I think that a lot of people have to go back to, I mean, if your life, I feel like if a person's life is out of alignment and I don't know what to do, I think you have to go back to the glove compartment.
Mhm.
You have to go back to the manual
Mhm.
and say, what is it about my life right now that is out of alignment with love?
Right.
What is it about my life that is out of alignment with with um, with wisdom?
Right.
And when they would adjust it, and I think it isn't always an immediate adjustment.
Sure.
I don't think they can just say, okay, now I'm going to walk in love. I'm going to start. I
Sometimes you have to move things out of the way. I think of a vehicle again. Like there, it used to be, right? Your spark plugs were right here and you could reach them and you could change them. Like my dad taught me how to change my spark. There's no
That's
way.
impressive.
I know, right? I could barely even reach the hood, but I could change the spark plugs. Didn't learn how to change a tire though. But the point is, you used to be able to just go in there and see it. There's an issue, change it. But now sometimes things are in the way and it takes a little bit longer. I think Carl Jung made a comment in one of his famous quotes that he has that he says, those who look outside dream. And maybe those dreams are nightmares, but they're looking outward and they're dreaming. But he said, but those who look inside
Yeah,
awaken.
yeah,
And I think that's one of the things that we're not taught to do is to go back into the owner's manual and start asking myself questions.
yeah. And that's the awakened part. What am I doing? What is it about me right now that is not in line with that?
Yeah.
That's the adjustments. However, again, I just want to add the little caveat that sometimes it is a season of adjustment to
Right.
get self back on track. That's why repentance is so
Mm.
big.
Well,
You go to
explain
people and say,
for
I'm
people.
really sorry.
Yeah.
I ran over your foot. I'm really, really sorry. It hurts just as much, but it starts you on the track of
Mm.
submission, of,
Of
of
love.
yes, of repentance, of love, of fulfilling what the Bible actually talks about by saying love doesn't take more than it gives. It's mindful of them more than it's mindful. That's just the nature of love itself.
Mm.
And and people that don't do it, I'm just going to tell you, people that won't do it, they will live their life on a level of hardship, of grief, of it's rage, in the sense it's almost like when the wind's blowing on you and won't stop, and you catch yourself, I'm frustrated.
Mm.
I can't, I'm just frustrated. And that's where people are. They're frustrated.
Right.
But they've got to begin to steer it back in line. And they do that by walking in love and bringing alignment. And it isn't just to bring alignment in here. Once I bring alignment in here, now I've got to go bring my alignment with you.
Mm-hmm.
I've got some people right now love God with all their heart, but there's such anger over family issues
Sure.
or over things on the job or whatever. And they're going to have to go back. And I've apologized for stuff I didn't even do
Yeah.
because I wanted to get past this impasse that was blocking me.
Mm.
But I'm not apologizing for that. Well, that's a sign. I
Right.
mean, it just is. Well, it wasn't my fault. I'm until they do something, I'm not making any change. Well, there you have it.
Yeah.
And I want to say, buddy, you better make your bed because you're going to be there for a while.
Mm.
God is not going to, until that adjustment takes place in us, we will never start on the path to the fullness of what God's called us to be. If I could give you another illustration, the children of Israel, they were going to take a 12-day journey from Egypt into the promised land. I'm sorry, they're right up against each other.
Mhm.
It could have been made, I know it may have taken even a little longer, but they came to the place where they faced hardship. They faced difficulties, they hunger or thirst, complaining, and they started murmuring.
Right.
And a murmur isn't just an outward gripe. A murmur is a sound. You can hear it. It's almost like the sound of a group of people, and you just hear mumbling. You know, you can't make out what they're saying. You just hear the sound.
Yeah.
And that's what they were doing. They were grumbling. They were murmuring.
Mm.
And God said, I'm not taking you forward until you deal with this.
Mm.
So what he did was he took them around the mountain, and a short time later, they face the same thing. This is what I call reoccurring problems. People that don't deal with it, they will not move forward in life until they deal with the murmur. They could have repented, but they didn't.
Mm-hmm.
And so they took that 12-day journey and turned it into a 40-year death march,
Mm-hmm.
to where that entire generation never was allowed to move in because they complained about the food. They complained about the water. They complained about the manna. They complained about the quail. Everything was a complaint.
Yeah.
You know, they said, well, it would have been better for us to go back to Egypt where we were in slavery than to be out here. And it's just a heart of unthankfulness. And that may be the situation. Until people can deal with a heart of unthankfulness,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that they will ever eliminate the things that took them out of alignment. You know, First Romans chapter 1, when he was defining one of the worst things in a generation,
Wickedness.
he said, neither were they thankful.
Mm-hmm.
And unthankfulness is a sign. It really
There's
is.
your sign.
Well,
it shows up on
is.
the dashboard instead of
Yeah.
tire low. You're becoming unthankful.
Yeah. Well, you know, I mean, we've got so many things right now. I mean, dear God, I've got unbreakable coffee right here. This is awesome. And yet we taste things, we experience things, and we're so caught up in the other little things that we can't even stop and say thank you.
Right.
And that's a heart condition.
Right.
And I think that's what keeps people from making the adjustments. I think their life's out of bounds. Yeah, maybe it was something that happened 40 years ago. But the fact is I can't make myself stop complaining about it.
Mm-hmm.
It's and to be thankful. So I'm thankful for what I have, and I begin to adjust, and I begin to bring myself back in alignment with you. If I've done so, I've got to make it right with you.
Mm-hmm.
I've got to make it right with you. I've got to come to you, and maybe we can't fix everything, but I got to make something right. And what that is, that's alignment, and that's a process.
Right.
I remember Tiger Woods when he changed his swing because he got older. His back was hurt. He couldn't swing. He couldn't become the pretzel that he had been before and just twist into. And he had to take a year off of golf, an entire year, to make a simple couple of little adjustments.
Right.
And what I'm saying is that's a process. And
Sure.
I feel like to bring yourself into alignment, it takes time. It takes time to adjust myself, my thinking, to turn my heart to thanksgiving, to go to the places where I'm out of alignment and say, what can I do? You know, how can I fix this? I don't want a trail of dead and wounded behind me at the end of my life.
Right.
I don't want a bunch of stuff that I just drove over everybody. Well, they shouldn't have been in the way. But seriously, that is that's what keeps us in the ditch and steals the beauty of life. Theresa, I'm gonna tell you something. In all of my life, I have never loved life more than I do now. I love life.
Mm.
I love you walk outside, the fresh air, the beauty, the friendships. This moment right here, just to share this, is such a treasure.
Yeah.
And I'm enjoying every moment of it. If I have something out of alignment with me, I may not realize it. And it shows up when things start to get hard or difficult. So I want to ask myself, first of all, if things start to get difficult, do I blame them, or do I turn inside and say, well, okay, is there something in me that's causing this response to that?
Yeah. That's a big thing, because our responses are 100% our control.
Yeah. But it reveals what's inside of us.
Yeah. Well, let's talk a little bit about, because when we started our conversation, we talked a little bit about some different cultures, right? And different cultures, different individuals have different things. And then you just brought up the Israelites and the wilderness. A lot of times, again, back to now, the culture has branded people so much, right? When you think about growing up through these things, and sometimes the branding is beautiful. We talked about a culture that is what has the best work ethic and the most amazing food, right? So sometimes that just brings such amazing things out of you. And sometimes through somebody else's wounding 3 or 4 generations back, we still carry this with us. And now the misalignment that I have, it wasn't even mine. But as you were talking about the Israelites, I thought about Caleb, right?
Mm-hmm.
And how even in the midst of a systemic issue, a cultural issue, a generational issue, we still have free agency. We can still choose to say, okay, but I'm going to get in alignment.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Talk about that a little bit.
Well, you're right, though. It's a choice. It's a choice, but it's hard for us to do that, though.
Especially when you've been
branded.
Well, sure. Yeah. And think about this. How many people do we work? I mean, in America, we are so blessed that we have such diversification, right? Yeah. We've got people from all cultures and backgrounds and everything. And sometimes are some systemic beliefs that are rooted in them that mom said, grandma said, grandpa's dad said, it's them. It's that group. And so we end up hating people.
Yeah. Well, I mean, dear God, we can see that right now politically between Democrats and Republicans. It's just stupid.
Right.
But you also see that, and we can use, for instance, the African American culture. What they went through racism was horrible.
Right.
There's no way that anyone could ever justify treating anyone like that. But racism is everywhere. There's racism in the Black community, just like there's racism in the white community. And until people can realize that, and of course, the Black community has been polarized in many ways because of what has happened before.
Sure.
And it's hard for them to pull it together to say, I'm not going to allow myself to respond and get totally out of alignment in the ditch with prejudice like somebody else does. Because prejudice doesn't come with a factory. God didn't send it in the factory. That's something that's learned.
Right. Right. And how many other things? Name a few more.
Well, the prejudice is summed up in this. It's conclusion without investigation.
Yeah.
I'm making an assessment about somebody without knowing anything about them, but I'm just going to take that and apply that, and it becomes a horrible thing to where you pigeonhole people and you pigeonhole yourself.
Right.
And when that happens, I'm telling you, it stops the movement. It stops the progression. People that get caught up in things like that, literally, they will live their life through and never move past the pain that happens somewhere else.
And what do they forfeit on that journey?
Life, peace,
What you just
relationships.
talked about,
Yeah.
this peace, this joy that you have.
Everything, everything. Life is designed to work, and we allow ourselves, because of our culture and the way things have been handed to us, we take that on ourselves, and it becomes toxic. Who we become as a person is toxic, and life stops working.
Right.
Life stops work, and then suddenly you're having to live life out of alignment, which means you're having to take it by force, and you're trying to take it by manipulation and by control and by hatred and by all of these horrible things. You're using all the dynamics that are contrary to love, contrary to life. You're having to use those to live. You'll have to manipulate people. I'm gonna take it from you. If I wouldn't, ever how I'm going to get to the top. If I have to step on you, I'll do it. So that becomes the lifestyle, because that's all they know. And culturally speaking, people have become afraid of each other. Somewhere we've got to stop being afraid of each other.
Right. Well, what do you think is an antidote to that?
Well,
what about a conversation?
Yes, that is a great start. That is a great start. But even with that, there's got to be a demolition of the framework that put us there. And the only framework, I hate to tell them, the only framework that's going to do it is going to be God, love. It's going to be, that is because that's how it was created. I mean, it was created this way. That's how it's always going to function. And if we're saying, well, I don't care how it was created, I'm going to go my own way, their life, they will never get out of it.
I want you to talk about something. You've talked about this before, about the laws of gravity, right? There's laws of, there's all kinds of laws, universal laws that exist. And love is a universal law. And whether people believe in God or not, the law of love works. So talk about the law of love.
Well, laws as a result, law is not a respecter of person. Laws just works. The law of gravity, I don't care what culture you're from, the law of gravity works. And if you don't believe that, you can hit the ground pretty quick. The laws and the laws, what the laws provide for us is so incredible if we learn how to work them. I've used this illustration before. A 747 jet would have flown just as well in 1776 as it would today, because the laws of flight are there. The law of lift, the law of thrust will cause and it doesn't eliminate the law of gravity. It just supersedes it with a higher law. The laws of electricity, they would have worked in the days of Noah just like they work today. But when you violate those laws, not only does it not work, but it can be very destructive to your life. And when person violates the law of love, not only does it not provide for them a life of peace, a life of joy, a life of fulfillment, of contentment. When you operate the laws right, I believe it draws things to you. I believe that when I function right, I don't have to make things happen. I think they will come to me supernaturally. Things will just be drawn to me. It's a law of attraction. It literally will draw everything when you're functioning right. But when you get contrary to the laws, they stop working. The lights in here. The reason why we're able literally to sit under these lights is because somebody set alignment with a power source to this building and connected the building to these lights. And they work. We don't walk in and say, my God, it's a miracle. The lights are on,
Right.
Because we know the lights, that we know that the laws have been honored. And when people operate in the law of love, the law of grace, the law of kindness, those things there, life works for them. When they violate that, when they get out of alignment with those laws, they stop working. And again, I don't care if it's the law of lift, the laws that govern electricity, the laws that govern, well, everything, literally everything in our life functions because God set those laws in motion. But the one that makes it all work, the real power source that makes everything work, is love. I'm telling you, when you get in alignment with love, and that's again, if we could go back to the fact that people have operated, I think people have operated so long by being contrary to love that they think it's normal.
They don't know. Absolutely. They don't know what even working and operating in love looks like.
This is the way it's always been. I don't know that it could ever. Why would we ever think it would be different? To actually go through a week and not hate somebody, to actually go through a week and feel like, dang, I love life. I'm so but that's when you've got to have this inner thing to where you're finding out, where am I out of alignment with love? You know, the Bible said, Philippians, he said, whatsoever thing is holy, whatsoever thing is good, whatsoever thing is pure, is there any virtue? Is there any praise? He said, think on these things and the God of peace will be with you. And so it's so simple. I mean, you know, most people, they couldn't pour water out of a boot if they had the instructions on the heel. I mean, this is so simple. You want peace? Think about the things that are good. Think about the things that are right. Think about the things that you can give thanks for. And he said, and the God of peace will be with you. So the actual description for how people get out of the misalignment and get themselves back in alignment is that it's the adding virtue. And virtue, for instance, if I could pause, virtue is the quality to do what is right. That's basically what virtue meant. When we talked about the virtuous woman, she had this instinctive quality about her to know what needed to be done, to know what was right. Virtue. And he said, you add that. He didn't say God was going to. He said, you add virtue, you add knowledge, temperance. You know, tempered. Steel is tempered by varying degrees of heat and cold, so it doesn't break under pressure. And a lot of people, they just, get a little tiny pressure on them, they collapse. Their whole building collapses. It's a house of cards. But he said, you add temperance and patience. And patience means I'm consistent. Every time you see me, I'm not up, down, up, down, up, down. You add those things, and that's a decision. And that's what's so stinking hard work right there. It's difficult and it's hard to add those things because it takes time, it takes diligence, it takes self-denial, it takes work. All of these things it's taking all of this for us to turn the curve away from this back over into a life that is being productive, or a life that basically is in alignment. And I think you're really right on with the fact of when your life is in alignment, life works. When your life is in alignment, your job works. I'm not saying hardship doesn't come.
Of course.
Difficulties, the winds and waves, it hits everybody's house. But it corrects, it fixes itself. When life works, it's not, I'm not in a constant struggle. You know, if I don't medicate, I'm not going to make it through the week. Life was not designed to be that way.
Right.
And so alignment, I think, even with what you're doing with Unbreakable, is to me, really the whole thing is to bring alignment back to a person's life, which is, Theresa, it's simple. It's not.
Well, I think that's the thing, right? The world is trying to sell you alignment. The world is trying to sell you these things to make money off of your whatever. But the truth is, the adjustments are inside of you.
Yes.
And you already have it.
Never on the outside, always on the inside.
Yes.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah. Well, I obviously I love putting on a fun conference and doing events and helping people see things. But there is a whole market out there that's telling you if you want happiness, buy this. If you want
Yeah.
to have freedom, buy this. They call it I probably shouldn't say the name, but the freedom credit card. What the heck is a freedom credit card? Right. But I mean, and they package things up.
Well,
And
it's free until you're 250,000 miles down the road. You think, oh my God, I got to pay for this.
well, with Amazon, it can be a lot quicker down the road before you can order while you're in the passenger
But you're
seat.
right.
But the world is out there trying to sell us these things. But the truth is, we've just got to be able to say, I want that life of peace that you talked about. I don't think anybody wants to be grumpy all the time. Maybe it's familiar. Maybe it's what they were exposed to and it seems normal. And then they see somebody like you walking around loving life, looking at the flowers and enjoying things. And they're like, that seems so
Yeah.
unfamiliar.
Yeah. What would you call a life of peace? What would that be to you? You know, I look at things from a male standpoint. And so, guys, we're just simple.
You're simple, huh?
Yeah, we're simple. We're very easy to please.
You know what? I think
just give me something to eat.
I think peace to me, just using that word, is simple. Peace is when things operate simply, when I'm not having to pull, when I'm not having to struggle, when I'm not having to fight. When that to me is peace, is the simplicity of things. Now, obviously, I think that when you get along, when things fit in the groove, when things operate, to me, that is peace. Simple.
Yeah, but women handle things different than men do.
Well,
they process things different.
You mean like all the things?
Well, there's been some times when I thought I was bringing alignment, and from a guy's standpoint, it was great.
Well, and I think you talked earlier about, when a circle is 360 degrees. And we've also talked about an alignment is when we're in alignment with other people. I think to your point, when you're in alignment with the right people, you can, if I'm sitting here by myself and I don't have you in the room, I can see 180 degrees. If I'm lucky, if my contacts are in, I can see 180 degrees. But if I put you next to me, we can see 360. Yeah. You can see what I can't see, and I potentially can see what you can't see.
Can I give you the analogy that we had already talked about was the piano?
Yes.
Yeah, I'd done that in a podcast. When I was a kid, we had an old upright piano. Of course, all the churches did. They were just dinosaurs. Half of the keys, the ivory was flipped off of them, but they played. Every church had
I have one of those.
Well, it's just, it's an old upright. And what was so amazing is we enjoyed it. It played, and it was almost always out of tune. Because it was old, it had been bumped around, it had been moved, it had been kicked, whatever. It just didn't have the care. And over a period of time, it was just out of tune. What might have been C was now B or B flat. It had just the tune had adjusted. And you could do that by yourself. You could play, you could gather everybody around the piano and play. But if anybody brought, say, a guitar or something like that they wanted to come and play along, they were still in C, but suddenly you were in B flat. And so what you had to do is you had to modify. And so what that meant is, okay, you're playing in C, I'm playing in B flat. I'm going to make an adjustment so we can play together. And I think what happens is a lot of people, they've been bumped, they've been knocked out of alignment, and you're constantly having to modify the conversation by saying, they didn't mean it like that. I know they said that, but they came across wrong. What they meant to say was this. So, because what they're doing there, they're transposing what they're saying for you. And that's just a sign to say, what, because you've been bumped. And it takes some time to go in and make the adjustments on each of those keys to where you bring it back up to standard, to where you can enjoy the flow with other people. If you get out of alignment and you don't make the adjustments that are necessary, relationship with other people will always be a struggle.
Yeah.
It will always be a struggle, and it'll be something that is a constant effort. It just seems like I can't get in line with anybody. And so you can make an alignment with yourself and just play by yourself, and everybody enjoy it. But you never have the flow with the rest of the kids. You never get to enjoy music with them. You can't play with them without a struggle.
Yeah, but I think as I hear you say that, it really makes me think about back to that conversation about when you're out of alignment and your car wants to pull, all of your energy is focused on just staying straight. And in that situation,
True.
if
It's a distraction, isn't
it is. Well, it's a huge distraction, and it's a detrimental distraction, right? If you're always having to make concessions for somebody else or make room for that, then also they're staying stuck and you aren't moving forward towards purpose, right? And then if we're we're just in contention with people and all that, we're not elevated towards purpose. Like it is a complete. So my TED Talk is how misalignment leads to death. And one of the final things I talk about in it is death of purpose, right?
Yeah.
If we're constantly stuck, or all of my energy, I think about the cells in our body when we get a cut on our hand, and I had a cut on my hand. If all of the energy in our body is going to fix that cut, what is it not going to?
Yeah.
Optimal cell development, right? It's not going to my brain capacity so I can build new thoughts and get creative energy. If we're always stuck, what is the absolute thing that's being lost? The fulfillment of God's plan and purpose for your life.
Well, that takes us right back to the moonshot. If you literally in that length of time, even though you're 1 degree off here, which we're not going to pay 1/360th of a degree off, we don't even notice it. But when you're 4,000 miles off your target, you've missed your purpose.
Yeah.
And purpose, and that's another thing, Theresa. I don't think purpose is realized in a event.
No.
It's
a journey.
It is. By the time I get to the end of my journey, I'm living out my purpose. I've reached this.
Right.
And you're right. I think it literally can steal their purpose. They're going through life.
Right.
They're going through the motions, but they're not fulfilling their purpose. And I guess is another thing to say, when you get out of alignment, if you're that far off, you're missing those divine appointments and divine contacts.
And they're missing you.
Yes.
And I think that's the big, from a selfishness perspective, oh, well, it's fine. I just missed my thing. No, somebody missed you.
Yeah. That's huge.
Right.
I believe in divine appointments, which means in advance, God has aligned things that are going to touch my purpose in my future. So there's 2 points there. I've got a divine appointment, but as I walk it out, I make a divine contact when I reach that place. But again, if I'm 4,000 miles off my target, I missed him.
You missed him.
I missed him. I was there and they weren't, or they were there waiting and I never showed up.
Yeah.
I'm in the ditch over here. I'm mad because I got road rage over here. So it's just, and I lost my purpose. Well, and that would be a horrible thing, I would think.
I think about that all the time. I think about the fact that I'm not necessarily the person who can always be the solution that my children need, but I'm hoping and praying that the work that I do equips somebody so that when my child needs them, they show up.
Yeah.
Right. And the work that we do around purpose is, and I think that's, again, back to why alignment with others is so important, because I believe that sometimes our purpose comes from painful moments in life, right? We get enough energy in us. You sent me a reel the other day that I loved, and it was about, why is it that Star Wars Aiken, was that his name? I don't remember. Listen, I'm a girl, but like, why did his aunt and uncle have to die at the beginning for him to step into purpose? Sometimes purpose is attached to pain, right? Sometimes it's pleasure, maybe golfing. Like, I don't know. But it's always attached to people. And if we miss that. And I think that's one of the reasons that the world wants us separated, that society wants us separated and distracted, because man, when we lock arms and we can do that 360 and we can see things from a full, whole, complete place that's charred and driven by love, what can we not do?
I'm really interested in those connections. I'm interested in the I'm interested in the divine contacts of, I mean, because I can think of several times when I've run into somebody and it changed my life.
Mm.
It was like that connection opened up a whole new world for me, really.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking how easily it would have been to miss them, to miss that.
You know, I just had a thought. It was in my season of being out of alignment that I met Dr. Val to bring me back into alignment. So sometimes, even in our misaligned seasons, those divine contacts are still there.
Yeah, and I think God provides that to bump us into line. You know, you are screwed up, so I'm gonna set somebody in your path.
You need somebody to.
You need AAA right now. I'm gonna send them to you. But that's true though. But see, I feel like every person is a door.
Yeah.
Every person is a door. And what we've done is we've underestimated the doors, or we've prejudged the value of a door, not realizing that door takes you someplace.
Right.
And if I'm out of alignment and I mishandle that person or abuse that person, then the connection that was going to come through their door, I would have never had the opportunity. Right. I've dismissed them. They're not worthy of my time. They're not, and of course I see that. I worry about people that stop being kind. Just kind. And kindness means this is the picture of God is the ultimate picture of kindness, because what kindness means is you didn't have to do that. Yeah, you didn't have to, but you did. That was very kind of you to do that. And I see people who abort the opportunities because they mismanaged or mishandled it, and they prejudged that door to not be worthy of their time, and they weren't kind, they weren't good, and dismissed them when that was the very connection to the next level of their life. Right. Every door takes you someplace. Every door leads you to another door. And I have seen sometimes when the most unexpected people that I would have ever thought were connected to some of the most important people in my life. And so I think how we treat people is a reflection of our alignment.
Absolutely.
I think to me, that's one of the biggest signs that someone is out of alignment, by how they mishandle people. You start seeing people that are very great. Oh gosh, you can have people that are great motivational speakers. Zig Ziglar. You can have Paul Harvey. You can have people that were elites.
Right.
They are so kind and so nice. Now, the middle management is where you get abused and you get handled. People that are, they're not. But when you get up to the top level where those guys are, you find people who are so generous and so kind. And it's almost like they find value literally in every person. They find treasure in every person. And that treasure releases something in them that they can't get anyplace else. And so I see also the relationships that we have, I see how we treat other people. Something that frustrates me. People that are not kind to the waitress are not kind people.
Right.
They're not. They how they handle someone else, how they mishandle someone else, to me reflects where they are in alignment more than anything else. I don't care about their ability. I don't care about how much they can remember. I don't care what they've what they've got, their doctorate, their educational status, their whatever degrees that they've got, if they're not kind to people, or how they treat people is a sign that they're out of alignment with life.
Right.
And they may get by with it for a while, but at the end, they are usually very lonely and empty and angry people. And it's because of how they stepped on people on the way up the ladder of success.
Right. Or maybe they were on the wrong ladder and they were miserable the whole time.
Yes, that's true. You can be out of alignment. Like that one guy said, I climbed the ladder of success, only to realize at the end that my ladder was against the wrong building. But I really believe, though, that the alignment and relationship of kindness and of goodness, of mercy, of patience, just tenderness toward people is I mean, I'm thinking, has anybody seen Cheers? Because you don't remember that too much.
Sure, probably. I do.
But yeah, it's just the place where everybody knows your name. I mean, people they want that. They just need to feel valued.
Well, and to feel valued, they have to find community.
Yeah.
Because how are you going to feel valued in your own?
But see, that takes us back to that other point, is the fact of you can be around 100 people and feel no community.
You're right. You're right. Wrong door.
But you're not in alignment with them, and they're not your DNA. They're not your tribe.
And I think I would love for you to elaborate on this, because a lot of times we think that just because that's my heritage, that's my lineage, that they're automatically, but sometimes you have to separate yourself from those people to find your real DNA.
Yes. Well, God did that with Abraham.
Yeah.
He said, I want you to leave all of them, get away from all of them. And because I've got something else for you that they are going to have an impact in a negative way. I think there are people that you do not belong with. You know, there are certain cultures, there's certain attitudes, relationships that are destructive to us. Give you another Bible story right quick. I'm sorry. Jesus came to that man at Bethsaida that was blind. He prayed for him because the man wanted to see, and the man was only partially healed. Jesus prayed for him. And so Jesus took him by the hand and led him out of Bethsaida and prayed for him again. And then the man saw clearly, and he told him, don't go back to the town, and don't even tell anybody in the town what happened. Right. Bethsaida was the place that Jesus had rebuked and said, woe unto you, Bethsaida, because if the mighty works had been, they were scoffers. Right. They were cynical. They were scoffers. And the environment, I believe, that man experienced in that town kept him in captivity. And Jesus literally had to take him by the hand and lead him out away from that before he could ever. And I think that there are certain environments and people, I see this in much of the educational system. I think that the colleges today are simply institutions of indoctrination. They're not educational, they're indoctrination. And kids come out of there and they don't even know what they believe anymore. Right. They don't, I mean, it's horrible. And so their life is affected by the environment, and you've got to find your tribe. Otherwise, I'm telling you, people will make you into their in your life. And
then you're all miserable.
Yeah, you are. You're miserable. You're off track. You can't find your path, and so you got to find your DNA. It's hard. It's almost like finding a mate. It's hard to find a mate, somebody that is you, right? Your DNA. But that brings full alignment to us, I really believe. And so that's kind of what I think, again, you're on track with, I think that's the biggest need in every one of the areas of Unbreakable. I think every one of them that you're touching has to do with alignment.
Absolutely.
If you can bring alignment to them. So.
Well, 2026 is the year of alignment. Yeah. And that is our main focus, our main vision, because I believe that the Bible is true, and that each and every one of us have a specific plan and purpose for us. And in order to get there, we have to get back into alignment, whether it's a business plan and purpose, or a life particular plan, or a relationship plan and purpose. How many relationships are divided because somebody got out of alignment? And those were
True.
perfect. They were God ordained relationships. And
Yeah.
then they're gone.
Yeah. That's so sad, because they literally implode, just blow up the whole thing,
Yeah.
because they got out of alignment
And
and
most
couldn't
of
get
it,
back.
yeah. And most of it was 40,000 miles back, just like you said.
But I'll tell you something else I think that is so important. We've got to come up with a way to where it's going to go back to the thing of the piano. The piano was a classic. It really was. You don't want to throw it away just simply because it's out of tune. But that's people who don't know how to fix it. They don't know how to adjust it. And it takes some time of twisting and turning and making adjustments to bring it in line. And there's been some people who, in ministry, in business, in families, because they didn't know how to adjust the alignment, literally
They surrendered, gave up.
collapsed. Everything collapsed. And what a loss.
Absolutely.
What a loss of something so beautiful and something so good, when all it would take.
It's a little tweak.
Yeah. I need to be tweaked. But
well,
and can I just add one final thing? Give you another golf analogy. You can't see what you're doing always.
right.
You have to have someone look at your swing. That time I went and I was off in the trees. I went to a pro. This was a pro. He was somebody who worked. He worked with people that were on tour. And I was trying to I can't figure why I'm doing this. I'm hitting and what's going on? And he said, well, here's what you're doing. You're doing this. And I actually said, and I'm embarrassed to even say that I said it, but I said, no, I'm not. Because I couldn't see it.
Right.
I thought I was doing this, but I had to have somebody look at me and say, this is what you're doing. That's why it's important that you have the kind of relationships where people can look at you and lovingly say, look, you're in the trees because of this. It isn't the club's fault. It isn't the ball's fault. It isn't it isn't the course. This is because of your swing, and this is what you're going to have to. And then you've got to be humble enough to say,
okay,
I apologize. I repent. I repent. And that's when you start tweaking the sound on the piano.
Yeah.
You start bringing yourself back in alignment. And so, but if we can do that, and I think one other thing is the fact that I've got to be submitted to you enough that you can be harsh with me. Well, that you can be honest with me.
Right. We don't need somebody that a lot of times is what gets us out of alignment, is people being too afraid to step on toes in a good way, afraid to give you guided correction, constructive criticism, constructive feedback, if we don't like the word criticism, right?
Well, but I think some companies literally have someone, they hire people to come in and say, this is what you're doing. The thing that I learned from an early age, always be open to constructive criticism or you'll never grow. Not destructive. Destructive criticism is just, I don't like you, there's nothing you can do. But constructive criticism is to say, hey, listen, you're off in the trees because this is happening. You're dropping the ball here. And if you're so defensive that somebody can't say something to you without ending your friendship, then that's another sign you're out of alignment.
Yes.
I mean, all of these things.
Well, sometimes it does take the ability to have a uninvested third party, right? Somebody who is not part of the family line, or somebody who didn't see all these. Sometimes you just have to, like you talked about, corporations hire companies to come out and do a 360. They actually call it a 360 review, right? That's what they come in to do. Where are all of the areas that you're out of alignment, that you're not producing to your fullest potential? Well, hello. I want to produce to my full, I want 100-fold, right? I want to produce to my fullest potential.
I tell you something else, though, that I think. How do you handle criticism? And this is how I really believe this. I think even if I think it's wrong, I need to be open to it to say,
Mhm.
is there a possibility that maybe part of what they're saying is right? Because there's such a tendency when somebody says, you're doing that wrong, just to blow it off.
Yeah.
But I think somebody who is wise will sit down and say, is it possible that maybe not completely what they're saying, but is it possible that they're right?
Mhm.
And that's something I think that many times we don't want to do.
You just made me think of my child. I remember being 13 years old and I knew everything. And I laugh about myself thinking that, oh, that was cute. You knew everything. But how many times as adults do we just shut other people's? It's just like your dad
Yes.
talking to you, your mom talking to you at 13. We shut other because we know it all.
Yeah.
But do we?
Yeah. No, we don't. Because I can't see everything. I have to have somebody look at my swing.
Yeah.
I need, you with your the expertise that you bring to the table. I need someone like you that can look at my productivity
Mm.
and say, you know what, you're not paying attention here.
Mm.
You're dropping the ball there. You should not be doing that, or you're doing this too much.
Mm.
As a speaker, you can unconsciously start saying things over and over and over and over, like, yeah,
Right.
and you don't realize you're doing it. And you need someone to say, you're saying, too many times.
Mm.
So we need one another.
We do.
We need one another to bring alignment. Iron sharpens iron.
Absolutely.
And boy, if we can run with that, we can produce something great.
Yeah, we sure can. Well, I would love for people to know how to find you. I will say, out of all the relationships and the doors that were opened for us, I'm so glad that God brought you into alignment to Elgin, Texas, and to my husband and I into alignment and into your church on our way to a different church. Like, we're going to stop here. We're going to let that car turn right into, and for 20
Greatest thing
years,
that ever happened to me.
100%. Me too. For 20 years, this relationship has grown, and I'm so grateful. And I know that had you not followed God's plan and purpose for you, there's no way I could be on my journey where I'm at today either, right? And relationships really, really matter.
It does. It matters. Well,
so tell us, what time is church on Sunday?
we just opened up church service special just for you.
Well, I'm excited. I was driving past the church today and see the expansion, and I believe that God's pulling more people into our building, that alignment is happening.
Awesome.
And this has been a dream of yours for a long time.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Teresa, I'm very thankful for you and Royal. I'm very thankful. I truly am. I don't think we would be where we are without you.
Oh,
and I mean that.
Well,
you guys are great. You guys are great. Wonderful family.
Well,
thank you for letting me be a part of this today.
Oh, you're welcome, Pastor Jerry. And you guys can all find Pastor Jerry online. He is on Facebook, and you'll get pieces of his wisdom, probably a lot of golf analogies, maybe some cups of coffee, sharing appointments, but always inspiration and always wisdom. So follow him, jerryedmond.com, or find him on Facebook. And of course, open door policy, because the door we go through is a good door at Family Worship Center, is 2425 FM 1704 in Elgin, Texas. Yes.
Very good.
Well, find Pastor Jerry. And if you feel like there is some area in your life, or maybe you're just willing to explore, maybe you're willing to be curious, to say, is there something out of alignment? Maybe it's my business, maybe it's my life, maybe it's my relationships. I want to invite you to the Unbreakable 2026 conference, where we are introducing the year of alignment, because you have a very important purpose, and we want to make sure that we take anything out of the way that would stop you from it. So God bless you, friends. Thank you for joining us. Have a great day.